What's going on, everybody? Nick and Ron here with Bros and Beers, Wednesday night, January 1st. Today we're going to give you our season awards for the end of the year, and if we have enough time, we're going to do a way too early 2025 mock draft. Ron, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Ringing in the new year. Season's over with. Time to talk about how some people did, and maybe get an early look into next season. How you doing tonight? How was your New Year's Eve?
It was pretty relaxing. The wife and I did some Legos and played a little bit of Marvel Rivals, and nothing too exciting. How about yourself?
Yeah, we were just played a little Mario Party with Callie, and we played some Sequence, and then played some Scrabble. She barely beat me in Scrabble, but actually she won in Mario Party too. But yeah, just hung out, played some games, had a few beers, and then we played Marvel Rivals, and it was a good night.
Hey, Jake with the W's. Thank you, bro.
Thanks.
20 W's
Appreciate
from
it,
Jake. How you doing tonight, Jake? I can answer this question. Wow. Mason, Saquon, Derek, Bijan, Achan, Puka. Dude, that team is stacked. You guys watch the crazy Texas game? No, I did not.
I didn't either.
I saw that they won in double OT, though.
Right.
Which is absolutely
I saw that too.
Insane. But yeah, as far as
Ohio State beat the crap out of Oregon.
Yeah, but we were kind of expecting that.
Yeah.
At least I was. But yeah, as far as awards that we're going to kind of go over, we're going to do MVP, best quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, biggest surprise, biggest bust, and then waiver ad of the year.
And these aren't gonna be like obvious, like
we go over best rookie too.
Yeah, but we could go over the best rookie as well. I think that'd be a good one to add.
Yeah, I mean, some of our players are rookies, to be honest. Some of our this is fantasy. It's not necessarily best players.
Yeah, we didn't want to make it like too obvious and be like, oh, Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, One of mine is kind of, I guess, we both had an obvious one.
Well, the MVP I think is obvious, but the rest of them aren't.
Yeah, Bucky Irving was a huge waiver wire pickup for sure, Ivan.
Dude, Bucky Irving was insane.
He was very, very good.
Yeah,
and he had a good championship week, but...
To start us off, Ron, who was your MVP of the fantasy season?
So... my MVP, I usually like to do like highest scoring non-QB.
Yeah.
And I also had him on a couple teams this year. And it was my last year I have him on a dynasty league, my last year with him in one of our keeper leagues, but Jamar Chase was my MVP this year. He freaking balled out all year on a contract year. And he had 117 catches for 161 targets, 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns. He was killing it all year. He kind of had a slow start to the year where I was like, man, he missed all training camp. Is this how it's going to go? After that, he was unstoppable from week 3 and beyond. He finished in the top 10 8 times, and he was wide receiver 1 4 times. Career high in catches, yards, and touchdowns, and he's on pace to win the wide receiver triple crown this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also on a team, like if you're in an 18 week fantasy season, he's on a team that's fighting for a playoff spot right now. So he's going to be playing, and he could put up more big numbers like this week.
Mm-hmm.
But Jamar Chase, great year. The Bengals are going to have some figuring out to do because they got to sign Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But if they got both of those guys, yeah, it'd be crazy. And I think you're going to say you saw T. Higgins said he would take lower money to stay with the team.
Yep.
That would be crazy.
I like that.
That'd be crazy. But yeah, my MVP is Jamar Chase. He's just killing it. He had 1 week. He had a couple weeks where he had like 45 and one was like 56, and
dude, he's
just played out of his mind this year.
we had conversations earlier in the year with some of our buddies about who's the best wide receiver in the league, and like we're all Minnesota fans, so everyone's like, "Oh, it's definitely JJ." And this was before he was like going off necessarily. This was like week 6, I think we were talking about this, and I was like, "Dude, it's got to be Jamar Chase. He's the best wide receiver." I mean, it's 1A, 1B, but like Jamar Chase is just insane. The biggest difference between him and JJ is Jamar Chase can take any route to the house. A 5-yard slant, 5 yards out, dude. He's just incredible.
Yeah, he's very, very good.
So, yeah.
Who's your MVP for the year?
So my MVP at the beginning of the year, I don't know if I would have guessed it, just because, like, he's been not as Jake, thanks for the heart me. He's had a couple down years, but we know he's potentially the best running back in the league, and that's Saquon Barkley. Number 1 overall running back, 7th overall player. Finished with 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns from catching the ball as well. So almost 2,300 total yards. He's not even going to play next week. So he had a chance to break the record. But, only 3 games all year under 10 points. He had 5 games, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 games above 30. So he was winning you leagues almost every week. And a lot of drafts, he was like a late first-round pick. Sometimes even like the 6th running back taken. So like his value was decent. I mean, he wasn't like a 6th-round pick or anything. But like Chase, he was a top 3 pick in a lot of drafts. So
I think he
top
fell in
5.
some of them just because of his contract issue that he was going through in the beginning of the year. A lot of people weren't sure if he was going to end up playing or not.
I guess it depends on when your draft was.
Right.
Like if your draft was in the beginning and middle of August, he probably slid a little bit, but we try to do the draft right before the season. So I guess he went up a little bit higher. But so Saquon Barkley, I think him and Chase have got to be the 2 MVPs, non-quarterbacks at least.
I feel like with quarterback, it's so easy to be able to find a replacement, like with somebody maybe having a good matchup.
Mm-hmm.
That even if you do have a really good quarterback that has a really good year, the positional players are a little harder to come by with them having crazy stats and having a really good year. I think if you find like Jamar Chase and Barkley did have really good years, and you got it. MVP for fantasy is, for me, it's hard to give it to a quarterback. But yeah, we both didn't pick a quarterback, so
well, I mean, like
matter.
Quarterbacks have the highest upside, of course. Like Josh Allen can go for 40, but you got a running back or wide receiver that could do the same. Like that's incredible.
Absolutely.
So yeah, speaking of quarterbacks, though, who was your? I'm going to emphasize not the best quarterback necessarily, but like, I don't know. I guess you would say for value.
We're kind of doing like, I think we're like value. Like, we're taking account in like the value of like where they were picked, what they were expected to do, and that kind of weighs in on like our best QB, best running back, wide receiver, and etc. Like we don't want to come up with obvious choices here. Like you and I could definitely say Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and like that's easy. Like these best running backs are going to be like the best. Who was the best value and helped out the most and where they were picked. So.
And we're still really good.
Right. So mine, going for a homer pick, Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Phoenix rising from the ashes this year. He's got 40 almost 4,200 yards passing, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Resurrected his career this year and has looked like a legitimate elite quarterback. And like the Vikings are winning games because they're able to pass the ball up and down the field with him and JJ and Addison and Hawkinson. He's looked incredible. Like it's crazy to say because we had Kirk Cousins the last 6 years. but I've never like watched this team knowing like having confidence in the Vikings as much as I have with this year, just because of the things Sam
Because of the
Darnold has been
quarterback
able to
play.
do. Yeah, and like I never had that feeling with Kirk Cousins. I
No.
always felt like he was gonna mess it up in some way, shape, or form. 14 wins this year. He's playing out of his mind. I mean, that'd be crazy if he passed for 5 touchdowns next week against for the Lions and got to 40. And it's going to be
It's
really
possible.
interesting. Like, yeah, it's going to be really interesting in like real life football what the Vikings are going to do, because he's made their decision very tough on like what the next move is at quarterback, because they drafted McCarthy. They got Darnold playing really well. He only signed for a year, but fantasy purposes, I'm pretty sure he was a top 10 quarterback. Yeah, he's number 7 overall right now. Playing really well. Sam Darnold's my best QB.
So then if you're the Vikings, I mean, I think they should re-sign him. See if they can get him for like a 2-year deal. Even if it's
Yeah.
$40-50 million a year. I understand McCarthy's cheap. He's on a rookie contract. We got a lot of salaries that we need to like re-sign.
Right.
But dude, you can't let this, like, if this guy walks,
Can't let him just
and
walk.
let's
yeah.
just say he goes to the Giants or whoever and just continues to play really well. I think he fits in our system. But like, that's huge. Dude,
Right.
one of the greatest quarterbacks, hot take. I think he's clearly talented, but the reason why he was so successful early in his career was because of his system, and that's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He got drafted to the right team. Darnold's young. Like, you can't let the guy walk.
Yeah,
So.
I was talking with my dad about it actually a couple days ago. He made a good point that if the Vikings can franchise tag him and keep him on for another year,
It'd still be pretty cheap.
still be pretty cheap, and then give another year for JJ to kind of actually learn and practice while
Yep.
he's healthy, that
Yep.
might be best case scenario, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
We got
I-
options, so
I don't think we have anyone else that we need a franchise tag, so it makes sense.
right.
Yeah, so my best quarterback. I mean, yeah, 41 million KP. That's a good deal. If you can franchise tag him for that or sign him for
Yeah.
2 years. Hey KP, thanks for
The
the
other-
follow.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think with he's playing at the level of guys that are making $50 million a year. So if we only have to pay him 40,
It's a steal.
right? Yeah, who's your best QB?
Yeah, so my best quarterback, another player who played for the Panthers, that's Baker Mayfield. He finished up as the number 5 overall quarterback in 6-point passing league touchdowns, but threw for almost 4,300 yards, 39 touchdowns, 42 total, and then 15 interceptions. Once again, another player that like scored 30 often. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games of 30. And his lowest all year was 10 points. 2 games of basically 10 or 11 points, and the rest were money.
Yeah, and then for fantasy purposes, he has his best week in
the
week
championship.
17, which is most championship weeks.
I mean, yeah, dude.
Your boy had to play against him.
I mean, his playoffs, he had 37, 27, and 45. 44, I guess, and a half. But,
Yeah.
like, he's another guy that the Buccaneers just need to throw money at him.
Right.
And he's still decently young for a quarterback. He's only 29, so it's not like he's a young buck, but like, dude, he's thriving in that system.
We've seen quarterbacks can play well into their mid to late 30s, so
Dude, look at Kurt Warner.
right.
He was real.
Tom Brady. You could say Aaron Rodgers, he's not really playing well, but I mean, he's still a serviceable starter.
Well, but when
So.
he played really well until he was like 37.
Right.
So.
Yeah, he won an MVP when he was like 36. He had almost 50 passing touchdowns. It was like 48 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond the point.
Who is your best running back, though?
My best running back is a guy.
Yes, Dave, the chef. Sorry. Jalen McMillan over DJ Moore this week.
I agree. Buccaneers have to win to make the playoffs, basically. If they win, they're in. So they have something to play for where the Bears and DJ Moore don't. So I'll definitely play McMillan.
Correct.
Running back. My best running back of the year was Chase Brown. Again, not going for who actually was the best and who played the best. Is value and who came out of nowhere to be really well. And Chase Brown is 10 yards away from 1,000 yards rushing. He's got over 1,400 yards and 11 total touchdowns on a really good offense. I drafted him in one of our leagues in the 7th round. It's a keeper league, so he's probably going to be one of my keepers. But I think he definitely proved that he deserves to be their lead back and not Zach Moss. Zach Moss did not really play well when he was healthy. So I think he's proven that he's probably going to end up being their lead back for the foreseeable future. But it kind of came out of nowhere after Zach Moss went down and just played really well when it was his opportunity to kind of take the reins. And he had 54 catches as well when, obviously a lot of this is coming after, like, when did Moss get hurt? Like, a lot of this is coming, this is
week 9. He was a starter.
He was only a starter for half the year too.
Yeah.
And he's a top 10 running back. Like, his weeks, he had one good week when he was like the backup. But weeks 1 through 8, he's like 5 points, 3 points, 9 points. He had 23, 16, 14, 7, and 11. And then after that, he became the starter, and he scored 13 or more since then. Basically, only starting half the year and ending up as a top 10 wide receiver, top 10 running back, getting 1,400 total yards, 11 touchdowns. It's a great year. 54 passes caught, too. He'd probably be pushing 80 if he was the starter all year.
Yeah, dude, he would be a top 3 back if he was a starter all year.
Right.
So, we got a question in the chat. DJ Moore or Garrett Wilson?
Either one of them. Their teams don't really have anything to play for, so it's kind of...
I mean, Garrett Wilson's playing against Miami, which the last time they played, he did really well. He had 7 for 114 against Miami the last time. I think I like DJ Moore just a little bit, just because, like, Caleb Williams, it's not a tryout per se, but, like, Aaron Rodgers has nothing left to play for. His career's at the end. Caleb Williams is out there to prove himself still. So
yeah, and DJ Moore's kind of been... He's the wide receiver 1 on his team, where Wilson has kind of turned into the wide receiver 2 with Devontae.
Mm-hmm.
And even though...
When DJ Moore's floor is safe, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
He's getting a lot of targets. Garrett Wilson is as well. But I just believe that... Here's
Devontae's
the thing, though, is keep an eye on the weather. They're playing it in Green Bay. And this time of the year, Green Bay can be really bad. I believe
Jets are in Miami, so
yeah, so that might be a reason to choose Garrett Wilson, but yeah.
I agree with you though. I think Moore has a safer floor because they do more to try to get the ball into his hands.
Correct. But yeah, so you talked about Chase Brown a little bit for your running back. My running back is another guy that, like, I was high on Chase Brown, but we didn't think he was going to do very well because of Zach Moss being there. Similar situation with Chuba Hubbard. They had Brooks, who was supposed to be back by week 5, 6 maybe, and he went nuclear in the second half. Ended up as running back 12. Didn't really play a lot of the snaps until week 6 is when he started playing 80% of the snaps. Finished off with 1,200 yards on the ground and 10 rushing touchdowns. Added a little bit in the receiving. game, but it was mainly just some receptions. He had 43 receptions, 171 yards, and a touchdown. He didn't play last week either. So if he would have played last week, he probably would be like running back 8, 9, 10, give or take. Drafted very late. In our league, he was drafted in the 9th round. And that's with keepers. So he would have been drafted in like the 11th or 12th round in normal leagues.
Right. Yeah.
Must start pretty much the whole second half of the year. Actually, like the whole year. Week 3, he had 28 points. He had a couple 20s. Only had one 30-point game, but he was just consistent. Besides a couple weeks, he was just solid. Perfect RB2 for any team.
Right.
And a lot of people drafted him as like RB3, RB4. I actually drafted him. The league I won the championship in, I drafted him late, like 14th round, I think it was. And week 2, I dropped him because I already had a bunch of running backs. I'm like, Brooks is going to be back. He's not going to be very good. Sure enough, he was really good. So.
Yeah, I targeted Brooks knowing that he's a second round pick in the draft. The Panthers were going to be down, throwing a lot. Maybe he'll get a lot of catches. He was only expected to be out like until week 4 or 5, like you said. And so the teams that I was able to get Brooks on, I made sure to draft Chuba so that I had at least a starting running back until Brooks got healthy. And it turns out that Chuba was the better choice anyways, because one, he didn't get hurt besides last week, but yeah, just played really well. He signed an extension for 4 years, and so now going into next year with Brooks getting that torn ACL, re-tearing his ACL, he's probably going to be a low-end RB1, high RB2 going into next year as well. And that Panthers offense is looking like it's starting to kind of click and
they're going to have a high pick
too,
still.
So, right.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in like the 3rd round next year.
Yeah, for sure.
So, who is your best wide receiver of the year?
My best wide receiver is actually a rookie who I was super high on early in the year. It was Ladd McConkey. I knew coming into the year, the Chargers got rid of, they didn't have Mike Williams, they didn't have Keenan Allen, and Keenan Allen was their slot receiver, good hands, good route running, and Ladd McConkey kind of fits that bill, and I was like, he's going to come fit right in, he's going to have a great year. 77 catches on 104 targets, 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns, and he did miss a game as well. And he's wide receiver 12 on the year, so he's technically right now a low-end wide receiver 1, high RB.
He missed a couple games, didn't he?
Right. He missed one game in week 14.
Oh, okay.
Against Kansas City. But yeah, he's kind of done what I expected him to do. And I bet if he played that other game, he'd probably
8 or 9.
Yeah, he'd definitely be a top 10, I bet. But yeah, he's played really well. He's proven that he's going to be a good wide receiver. He's going to be Justin Herbert's favorite target, and he'll just keep getting better and better the more chemistry he gets with him. So I had him on a few of my teams. He played really well. Our Dynasty League, I got him, Brian Thomas Jr., Jamar Chase. I'm set for our Dynasty League and wide receivers. I'm not going to touch a wide receiver in a draft for the next 2 years probably. But yeah, he played really well. And so, like I said, I was high on him in the beginning of the season. And I think for his value, he's probably drafted between rounds 7 and 9, I think, for most drafts. I would guess. So him finishing as basically a top 12 guy for that value is a good bet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had him in our keeper league, and I traded him for Neighbors, basically. So it was fine.
Which
Neighbors
wasn't a bad swap.
Neighbors was wide receiver 8, so it's all right.
Who's
My
your best wide receiver?
So mine was tough. It was after looking at things deeper. It's between Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Um, Brian Thomas helped people win some championships. I mean, he had 32, 28, and 23 in the fantasy playoffs. Finished off as wide receiver 4, and he was drafted ninth, 10th round. Finished off with 80 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Just a stud. Doing a lot of work with Mac Jones as his quarterback. Granted, Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk did go down eventually, but like early in the year, Thomas was just booming.
Right.
I almost want to say Neighbors though, just because Neighbors played 2 less games, and well, so I didn't pick Neighbors originally because of where he was drafted. He was drafted a lot higher, but.
Right.
I just got to, maybe as an honorable mention, played 2 less games and only had 10 less fantasy points. So, like, this year's wide receiver class has to be one of the greatest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We'll talk more about that wide receiver class a little bit later too.
Yeah. But I'm going to stick with Brian Thomas just for the fact that he was drafted way later than Neighbors. I mean, almost 8 rounds later.
He was kind of in the same range as Lad McConkey, where he was in that 7, 8, 9 range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe him playing every game and like being a consistent, person all year.
That actually
is a reason to actually think he is better because he stayed healthy and actually played every game.
Well, and he helped. Like for 2 weeks, he actually helped teams where Neighbors was out.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Let's get to your tight end. Who is your best tight end?
This one probably is a little bit more obvious just because he is the tight end one right now, but Brock Bowers, I mean, I for one was a doubter coming into the season just because they got Devontae. They didn't really know who their starting quarterback was coming into the year, and it was either going to be Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, and I'm like, this dude is going to be on one of the worst offenses in the league. He's got nobody throwing him the ball. It's like, what's he going to do? Well, he ends up getting 144 targets, 108 catches, a little over 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns, which is a little lackluster, but every other stat, I mean, I'm pretty sure are rookie tight end records.
It is,
I think he broke, like the catches and yards broke Sam Laporta's that he just set last year. And he is definitely going to be a focal point of this offense.
Well, and they could be drafting a quarterback next year.
Right. If they do end up getting a quarterback, look out.
He's the next Kelsey.
He probably is.
Like where he's drafted in potentially the first round. He's end of the first round.
He's very, very good. And he's proved that it doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. He's going to make plays. And, yeah. I think if the Raiders can fall on their sword and just lose this last game to try to get a higher pick, they could end up getting a pretty good quarterback to actually throw him the ball.
I mean,
it's kind of weird that like all these teams are like, oh yeah, we're not gonna lose, we don't do that, and then the Browns are like, yeah, we're starting DTR, so we're basically not saying it, but we're losing.
Yeah. No, Winston gives them a chance.
Kevin Stefanski is like, F this, I want a new quarterback. He's like, I don't want to play Deshaun Watson anymore, so. But yeah, Brock Bowers was my best tight end. Who was yours?
Yeah, so this one might be a little obvious just because he was huge at the end of the year. It's Jonnu Smith, though. Ended up as tight end 4. Didn't do anything, honestly, until week 7, really.
Mm-hmm.
Finished off with 79 catches, 828 yards, and 7 touchdowns. But yeah, week 11 on, he was just very consistent. Had 20 points, 3 straight games, and then right around 12 the rest of the year, which for tight ends, that's perfectly fine. He was also a waiver claim. So, like,
yeah,
as a tight end, you can't ask for much more than that.
Yep.
Not much more to say. he was a big focal point of the Miami offense, who was lackluster all year.
Right.
I picked him up in a couple leagues and did very well for me. So
For
he
sure.
might not have a lot of value next year because he's a little older, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's go with your biggest surprise. So this is a player that you didn't think was going to do necessarily great and exceeded their How about that? A player that exceeded their expectations.
Sure. I'm going with rookie quarterback Bo Nix. Before the season started, I was like, he's kind of going into a good situation with Sean Payton. He's got a decent offense. Didn't really expect a whole lot from him, though. And then after his first week playing, I was like, all right, this guy's going to suck. I mean, his first week was... I'm just going to look back at it real quick just to see.
13 points. His first 2 weeks.
Yeah, 138 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. He did have a rushing touchdown the first game, which saved him. And then the next game was a little more yards, 2 interceptions. Like, he didn't throw his first passing touchdown until week 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think after that, though, he kind of took off. And dude looks like he's going to be a legit quarterback.
Franchise.
With a really good,
franchise
yeah,
QB.
franchise quarterback with a really good, like, offensive-minded coach. Yeah, I ended up picking him up in waivers in a few different leagues, and I think in our keeper league, it was my last year with Josh Allen. I got Bo Nix that I can keep for like a 14th round pick. Like, that's a high chance he's going to be one of my keepers next year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think getting an off season, getting more time learning the playbook, maybe they get it maybe he gets more chemistry with his wide receivers. But yeah, I think he was my biggest surprise of the year. I expected him to play decently, but I think he played a lot better than most people were anticipating. So yeah, my biggest surprise of the year was Bo Nix.
I didn't think he was going to be this good. I thought he was going to be decent just because he fits, going into the draft, he fits Sean Payton's system.
Right.
He's athletic, he gets the ball out quick, and he's very precise and accurate with his short passes. I don't want to get there yet, but he's got a lot of similarities to Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
He's
his biggest advantage, whatever you want to call it, is his leadership and his tenacity.
Right.
Dude's just a spitball. He'll get in your face and talk that smack, and other players love that. And they don't even have Cortland Sutton's fine, but he's not an alpha. If they can get a true number one wide receiver in there, which they're not going to have a high enough draft pick. Well, we'll see. Wide receivers don't go that high, but
you can always get a free agent too. You never know.
Imagine T. Higgins on the Broncos. Oh my God,
man, that'd be crazy.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, he's they're playing for a playoff spot this week too, so he's gonna have 30 total touchdowns more than likely as a rookie quarterback, which is
what's up, Robert?
Pretty good. Thank you, Robert. So yeah, my biggest surprise of the year, Bo Nix. Who's yours?
A guy that I was not high on, and the reason I was high on him was because I was like, this guy's not going to score a lot of touchdowns. His quarterback steals everything. What does this guy do? Scores 17 touchdowns this year. That's James Cook.
Yeah.
He was drafted in the third, fourth round, depending on the league you're in. He's going to get 1,000 yards barely. But yeah, biggest thing is 15 touchdowns on the ground and then 2 in the air. His career high before that was 6. So, without those touchdowns, he was just an okay fantasy player. Finished off as RB9, 27th overall. So, he only had 3 weeks all year where he didn't have 10 points. Granted, he was drafted as an RB1 for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes an RB2, depending on how you drafted. But, yeah. 4 games where he didn't score a touchdown. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you where I wasn't very high on him because I didn't think he was going to have many touchdowns. I mean, he had more receiving touchdowns last year than he did rushing touchdowns because, again, Josh Allen, they get down and he just runs it in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he scored a lot of touchdowns. I think the one knock as well that people are going to have to pay attention to, especially going into next year, is his
snaps.
Low snap percentage because Ray Davis and Ty Johnson both played really well.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Ty Johnson might not be there next year, but yeah, James
Ray
Cook
Davis
had a good year. He
sure.
definitely exceeded my expectations too. So.
Oh yeah, but that's just because of the touchdowns. Like,
right.
The rest of his game, I mean, he had less rushing yards than last year, less receiving yards. Like, everything else was worse. It's just he just made up for it in touchdowns.
Right. Well, when you get those opportunities and you can cash in on them, that's the
big
thing.
It makes it even crazier to think of how much bigger a year Josh Allen could have had.
Right.
But
if Cook didn't score all those touchdowns for sure.
Granted, James Cook, I know like probably at least half of those were long runs.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was scoring 2-yard touchdowns. But we had a question in the chat. Robert, is it safe to say Gibbs should be drafted higher than Bijan next year? I would say yes, but it depends on Penix. It also depends on Montgomery. Like Gibbs, part of a much better offense. I mean, Gibbs was RB2, dude. That's insane.
Yeah. Even with most of the time.
I think so.
But Bijan is number 3.
Correct. It just depends on what kind of, like, what happens with the Falcons. Like,
right.
The good thing about Gibbs is the Lions have the best offensive line in the league.
Right.
Or top 3, at least.
Yeah, with Bijan, too, I think if they're going to go with Penix, he's a young quarterback, they might have to rely on their run game and, like, dump-offs a lot more next year if Penix is the quarterback.
Correct, but
Gibbs,
I don't think
Montgomery
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Montgomery and Gibbs prove that they can both be really good fantasy running backs because the Lions will run the ball down the throat of anybody.
Mm-hmm. I will say the knock, or like the good thing about Gibbs, I know Robinson had a good year with touchdowns, but like Gibbs is just part of a better offense. His touchdown upside is greater, I think.
I mean, Gibbs has more touchdowns than Robinson right now.
Yeah, 3 more. But like it could be more or less with Gibbs, just because you never know.
Both obviously are going to be top 3 running backs next year. Mm-hmm. Those two and Saquon. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Robert Scatterbo looks like he's probably I'd be surprised if he doesn't get drafted in like the 2nd or 3rd round with how good of a year he had.
Oh yeah.
Like Genti obviously is going to be the top pick because he was really close to like breaking records, and his season low just happened in the game against Penn State. It was 104 yards.
He finished off with 124.
That's nuts.
But yeah,
that's just insane. But yeah, he'll be a good pick for sure, Scatterbo. Oh, but yeah, James Cook, he was definitely a surprise for me as well. I definitely avoided him. I was like, this guy's not really going to score any touchdowns, and then he scores 17.
That's one thing about fantasies. It's there are certain things that are unpredictable.
Right.
But who was your biggest? You okay, Jax? Who was your biggest bust of the year? I think I know the answer.
My biggest bust is something that I'm biased towards just because I drafted him very high in one of our leagues. But Marvin Harrison Jr.,
Brees Hall.
Yeah, Brees Hall. I agree with that one too, Robert. He was a very high pick,
He was
but
rough.
he was
he was fine before he got hurt, though.
Yeah. In our keeper league, I drafted MHJ in the first round. All the good running backs that I was hoping to drop to me didn't, even though I could have taken Derrick Henry. I didn't really like him. I didn't think he was going to get a whole lot of receiving work, but then he just rushes for like 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. So, stupid mistake on my part. But I thought I had Jamar Chase and Puka as keepers, so I thought if I got these three good wide receivers that I can play every week, if MHJ lives up to the hype, like, I'll be set. But then he goes and just has a crap year. He did have 110 targets, only had 57 catches, 822 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He's the 33rd ranked wide receiver in PPR. Just a major bust overall. He was probably a second-round pick or higher, like a late second round or higher in most drafts this year, thinking that, he's a top 5 pick going into an offense with Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm.
And
totally
just crapped the bed.
So,
Keegan?
Robert, I think it's half and half. If you watch the tape, Kyler's first look is not towards him. It's always towards McBride. MHJ quits on a lot of his routes.
Yeah.
Like there are times where he could be open, but he just stops 3/4 through or slows down.
That would suck if he turns out to be one of those guys that's like, I'm really good. Like, well, I don't have to work that hard because I'm really good. I was a top 5
and I think
pick,
that's his problem.
But then you see like guys like Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., all other rookies that like
were drafted later.
Dude, all 3 of those guys that I just named finished top 12. They're top 12 wide receivers in the league this year, fantasy-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And they were drafted after this guy who was supposed to be like a generational talent. So, yeah.
Yeah, Robert, his jerseys are for sale. I don't think that lawsuit ever went through.
Whose jerseys?
MHJ. At the beginning of the year, he was talking about he didn't want his jerseys to be sold because of some money issue, I thought. He wanted more money, or Kyler holds the ball too much when there's open guys. Yeah, I mean, Kyler is half the problem. He's just not a very good quarterback. But MHJ, and maybe that's why MHJ is quitting, is because he just doesn't believe in his quarterback.
Right.
I don't know.
And yeah, I don't understand why BTJ's was low either. That was another rookie where I was like, this guy's big, fast.
It's because of the quarterback.
It probably was, but Trevor Lawrence isn't terrible, but I think the one knock on him is that he gets paid like he's a top 5 quarterback, and he's not.
And Jacksonville had other options. Like, they still had Christian Kirk. They just signed Gabe Davis, and they had Evan Ingram. Whereas, like, Neighbors, they had nobody else.
I was high on him because of everybody else. Like, you got Kirk, who's their slot guy. Evan Ingram is not a bad tight end. He's a good tight end. But yeah, I was like, if this guy could end up being their like wide receiver 1 if he proves that he's good enough. So yeah, LSU is wide receiver U. Like the three of the top 4 wide receivers this year in fantasy are LSU wide receivers.
So I think
Jamar Chase, JJ, and Brian Thomas. Just crazy.
Neighbors, yeah.
Neighbors, that's right, yep.
MHJ was a junior. The only issue, so Keegan said he was a junior. I don't know if Ohio State wanted him to stay because they had a ton of studs right behind him that needed to play.
Jeremiah Smith, a true freshman.
Yeah.
Who just had a huge game against Oregon.
Yeah. Absolute flop. That was the Niners assumed starting O. I hate to say it, but I don't believe in the 49ers next year. Devo's overrated. CMC's injury prone. Ayuk's going to be coming off a torn ACL. I don't think Brock Purdy's not elite, and they're going to have to pay him. So, yeah, looking like Eddie.
Yeah, dude.
He's got the gut. Although I heard that it's is it a flak jacket? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
So that makes him look even bigger. we'll
It's
see.
crazy, man. Some of these guys, like, they really are just playing for a paycheck
Hmm.
and don't really have passion for the game and want to play. Depot could be one of those guys who are like, oh, I got paid. Like, I don't need to try that hard anymore.
Hmm.
You never know. But yeah, who was your biggest bust of the year?
My biggest bust has to be Travis Etienne. Drafted in like the third round in most leagues. Um, Finished off as running back 38. He only missed 2 games. So it's not like he
Yeah,
was
he was bad.
injured. He was just terrible. Granted, Tank Bigsby did look really well. Looked really good. He started off the year okay. I mean, had 10 points in 4 of 5 games. But when you're being drafted as a third round pick, you want better than that. He was third last year in PPR for running
Hmm.
backs. So like he had very high expectations. Um, yeah, I think the biggest issue is he's not a very good running back, but Tank Bigsby is much better. So
Yeah, ETN didn't even score 15 points all year. His highest output was 14.8.
hmm
That's just insane. And yeah, I think a lot of people were high on him too because they did draft Tank Bigsby last year, and then Tank Bigsby didn't look like he was going to end up being what they thought he was, and then now coming to this year, he definitely did. And I think ETN is going to find himself being like the third down running back on that team.
yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see if they draft somebody else.
Yeah,
Robert, talk about Jaguars running backs. What about Leonard
James
Fournette?
Robinson. Yeah, Leonard Fournette is another one.
Like
That's a
generational
great
talent
one.
at the running back, and he lasted like 3 years in Jacksonville. Yo, what up, Zerkatron?
What
49ers have
up,
to get rid of a lot of
Zerkatron?
guys. Yeah, Keegan, the 49ers are kind of screwed. I hate to say it. Happy New Year's. Leonard
Happy New Year's to
Fournette.
you too.
Who is your
Yeah.
best waiver ad of the season?
My waiver out of the year, I picked this guy because he was somebody that we talked about when we did a waiver video. But it was Jerry Judy.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of had a slower start to the year. Yeah, through week 7, he was like 11 and a half, 12, 9, 13, 2, 4, 2. And then like week 8, he's getting 13, 14. And then after like their bye week, he kind of took off. He had that career game against Denver, which revenge game, so no surprise there. But
Mm-hmm.
he ended up being pretty solid. I mean, he had 132 targets, 84 catches, almost 1,200 yards, which I'm sure he'll end up getting by the time next week is over. 4 touchdowns, so not like the greatest in terms of touchdowns, but I mean, still, if he's somebody you added off the waiver wire, he finished as wide receiver 11. So you basically added somebody, and he was a low end wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2,
And that's with having a lot of bad weeks with Deshaun Watson.
right?
So,
But
yeah.
yeah, he played really well. And yeah, Zerkatron, another one that I consider was Jonnu Smith. I know Nick and I
Mm-hmm.
both picked him up in different leagues and started him almost the rest of the year. Jordan Mason was really good until his injury too, Derek.
Yeah.
He was looking like it was like why even bring CMC back?
Yeah. And clearly it didn't work out for them as CMC got hurt
Right.
again. Tim Patrick was fine, but he really only had like 2 good weeks.
Yeah, there
And
was
they
actually
were,
somebody.
and realistically,
Was it is?
it was just,
Go ahead. Sorry.
it was just the red zone catches. Like
Hmm.
he had 6 for 43 and 4 for 30, but luckily he caught 3 touchdowns. So
Yeah,
just
there was actually
go
there
ahead.
was somebody in one of my leagues I was playing in the championship.
Yo,
Had
Jake with
thanks,
the
Jake.
lightning bolts.
He had CeeDee Lamb, and obviously CeeDee Lamb didn't play last week. They shut him down for the rest of the year. He had to pick up. He had to play somebody else. He put in Patrick, who scored 0 points, but he had Marvin Mims on his bench, who went for 30. And if he would have started Mims, he would have won. But yeah. There's so many mouths to feed on that Lions offense that it's just like you got Amon-Ra and then Williams and Laporta and Gibbs and Montgomery when he's healthy.
If you're in a best ball league, that's the offense I want to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim Patrick definitely had his moments. For sure.
How will I do Dynasty Draft if I played my season in ESPN Fantasy? So Zerkatron, this is like a brand new league. It's a brand new league on Sleeper.
Yeah.
Also, if anybody watching, you want to join some fantasy football leagues, we already created some. We got a redraft, a keeper, and a dynasty league set up. So just let us know, and like anyone's welcome. That's on TikTok. But yeah, it'll be a brand new league. We'll be doing the draft in like a month and a half. So like it's completely started from fresh. You'll still have your ESPN league. This will just be a separate one on Sleeper.
There's a Discord.
They'll probably be like $25, Keegan. I understand that money can be tight for people. It's more so just for like bragging rights or just like community building, I guess, or just like
we want to
fun, I guess.
Yeah, we want to keep it cheaper so that
we can like anybody can join.
It is more for fun and for bragging rights, but it is nice if you do win to get like.
Well, like I don't like doing free leagues because I've had too many experiences where because it's free and your team sucks or like you lose interest that people just stop playing. So if there is money involved, like more people will actually try the whole year, I guess.
Stay competitive.
Correct. Almost like keep the integrity of the game.
Right.
But
yeah, I threw the Discord in there, so if anybody in here wants to get in that, join the Discord. We post stuff on there to have you guys join these leagues that we want to start. But yeah, like Nick said, we got a dynasty, a keeper league, and a redraft league. Love to get 12 teams in each of them. So the more the merrier, and if we end up getting 12, we might push to 16 if we can, or if we can even do like 2 different ones, we'll do that too. So.
But yeah, my waiver ad of the year, it's got to be Bucky Irving. He was drafted super late in some leagues, but like half my leagues he wasn't even drafted. Ended up as, let me look, technically RB 16. So it's not like he was phenomenal, but he never played over 60% of the snaps. Actually, 1 week he played over 60% of the snaps. So like he had a couple 20-point games, a couple 30s. He didn't really start playing well until week 6, I would say. And then he was must start every week, even with sharing with Rachaad White. Could have said Jonnu Smith, but I swear you had already said you had already talked about Jonnu.
I talked about Jonnu. Tight end.
That's right.
You didn't want to double up on people.
Yeah. So yeah, he's going to be a guy that's heavily drafted high next year. I could see him slipping into like the 3rd round in some leagues, probably like 4th though, just because if he's sharing with Rachaad White. Have you guys thought about adding the Discord when you're live? I have TikTok notifications on, but never get them.
We definitely should.
No, we used to like when we first started this. When we go live on Twitch, we would just send an @ to everyone that hey, we're going live, but we could start doing it again.
Yeah, we might as well throw it in the Discord.
If people want that
general text channel, just be like, hey, we're going live. Wouldn't be a bad idea. And Zerkatron, yeah, the leagues, like we were just talking about, all the leagues we want to do, we don't want them to be free just because we do want people to.
Well, let's just say we're not against a free league. Like if we can't get enough people and people, like we can make them free, but
for sure.
The downside is just like there's not, besides bragging rights, some people just don't. Oh yeah, Robert, we can definitely send out a notification when we're going live on Discord. I would say Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays for right now we try to go to live at 9 p.m.
Probably switch to Fridays though, now that the season's over.
Correct, yeah. But yeah, we can start sending a message on Discord whenever we go live.
That's definitely not too hard to do. I if we need to do it free to get more people to join, I'm not against that. I know that I've just had my bad experiences with, like, if I've ever just joined like a random free league on.
There's more collusion.
It's basically just like, basically nobody tries. So.
Yeah.
It's not fun when people join it and don't try. And so having it be for money kind of defeats the purpose of playing, but yeah.
Well, some people like it for pride, bragging rights. I like having that and a little bit of money. But I think my number one priority, though, with these leagues is making it somewhat competitive, but also just like fun. I want people to have fun in them. Like, that's kind of like our whole point of Bros and Beers is like, we want to help people out, but like just build a community of like I don't want to say like-minded people, but like we want people to join our Discord and hang out with us that like football.
Mm-hmm.
So,
agreed.
For the YouTube video, Ron, I think that's good enough for today.
Yeah.
We would like to do a way too early mock draft, but I think that's we could do that in another YouTube video, I would say.
Yeah, maybe we try to shoot for that on Friday, because I think if we try to do that, it might be a little too late. And if it would be kind of fun, we can send out a notification and say we want to do a way too early mock draft in Discord and see if anybody see if anybody's going to be on and actually be like, all right, this guy's got the first pick, you got the next.
Well, we can literally create one on Sleeper.
That's true.
So.
That's very true. Yeah, so if people are in our league with us, we'd be able to. We'd be able to do it. Robert, I don't know if you were in here when we were talking about it. But we do have a few leagues set up already. I don't know if you saw them in the Discord or not, if you're interested in joining them, but yeah, we'd love to have as many of you guys join some leagues that we've created as we can. We think it'd be fun, and we obviously love fantasy football. We wouldn't be spending time talking about it late at night, so.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that I'd say that's good enough for at least the YouTube aspect of this. Like always, everyone, like, comment, and subscribe. Comment on our videos with any fantasy football related questions, and we will comment on them or talk about it in our next video. If you subscribe, you get notifications on whenever we go live or post videos. Likes just help us out, bump us up the logarithm. We got all our social medias below. You can find us on TikTok, Discord, Instagram, Twitch, so on and so forth. Hopefully you can talk to us there. We mainly go live on TikTok, but yeah, have a good night, everyone. We're still live on TikTok. If you're on there, we'll talk to you there.
Peace.